My girlfriend said, "You're not my father. Stop asking where I go." Before heading to a friend's place at 2 a.m., I replied, "You're an adult." What she didn't expect was to see me at the same club she was at an hour later. The expression on her face when she spotted me with my real friends was unforgettable. There's a certain stillness that falls over a home when one person has mentally exited the relationship but hasn't actually left. It's the quiet of two individuals living in separate worlds. A silence disrupted only by the sound of a phone locking or the soft rustling of someone dressing to go somewhere you're not welcome. For the past 6 months, that silence had been the main soundtrack of my life. My girlfriend, Maya, and I used to be the couple that everyone envied. We were annoyingly in tune. We finished each other's thoughts. We enjoyed the same quirky foreign films. We had a universe full of inside jokes. I'm a graphic designer, naturally a homebody. My idea of a perfect evening is working on a new project on my tablet, listening to a great album, with the person I love next to me on the couch. For 3 years, that person was Maya, and it was blissful. But somewhere along the way, the connection faded. It started slowly. Her girls' nights became more frequent, lasting until 4 a.m. When I asked who she was with, her answers were vague. It wasn't Sarah and Jen anymore. It was just some colleagues. She began to protect her phone as if it contained state secrets, turning the screen away from me whenever a message arrived. The shared world of our relationship started to shrink until it was just me on the couch alone, wondering where she was. My friend noticed, of course. "She's walking all over you, man," Chris told me one night over beers. "You're a pushover." I instinctively defended her. I made excuses. "She's just stressed from work. She's young. She deserves to have fun." I was in love, and love is a potent numbing agent. It dulls the pain of 1,000 small wounds. The night it all ended was a Friday. I had cooked her favorite dish, an incredibly complicated pasta that took 2 hours to prepare. I hoped we could have a real night together, reconnect, and watch one of those quirky movies we both loved. She came home late from work, glanced at the dinner I made, and said, "Oh, I'm not hungry." I grabbed something with the girls. Then she spent the next 4 hours on the couch, not next to me but at the far end, texting furiously, a small secret smile on her face. I didn't say anything. I just cleaned up the untouched pasta, my heart feeling like a heavy stone in my chest. I went to bed around midnight. I was just drifting off when the sound of her closet door opening woke me. I opened my eyes. In the dim light from the hallway, I could see her getting dressed, pulling on jeans and a black top I hadn't seen before. It was 2 a.m. I sat up. "Where are you going?" I asked quietly. She jumped, startled. She hadn't realized I was awake. She turned, her face a mask of irritation. "Out," she said sharply. "Out where?" I asked. "It's 2 a.m. To a friend's house," she snapped, brushing her hair angrily. "Sarah's having a tough time. She needs me." The lie was so lazy, so transparently insulting. I knew for sure that Sarah, her so-called best friend, was out of town visiting her parents. I'd seen the pictures on social media just that afternoon. My first instinct was to call her out, to present the evidence, to have the argument we should have had months ago. But I was just so drained. Drained by the lies. Drained by the excuses. Drained by feeling like a detective in my own home. "Maya, can you just be honest with me for once?" I pleaded. "Where are you really going?" She spun around, her eyes blazing with a cold fire I had come to recognize too well. And then she delivered the line that would encapsulate our entire relationship. "You're not my dad," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Stop questioning where I go." The words struck me harder than a physical blow. It wasn't just the disrespect, it was the framing. My concern, my desire for a scrap of honesty was twisted into something ugly and controlling. I wasn't her partner asking for respect. I was a paternal figure trying to control her. It was a perfectly crafted, soul-crushing insult. And in that moment, the numbing effect of love finally faded away. I felt every one of those 1,000 tiny cuts at once. I looked at her, this beautiful stranger standing in our bedroom, and felt the last bit of fight drain out of me. She was right. I wasn't her father, and I was done acting like it. "You're an adult," I said, my voice flat and hollow. I lay back down and turned my face to the wall. I heard her hesitate for a moment. She had expected a fight. My sudden, quiet surrender was not part of her plan. But the moment passed. I heard her grab her purse, and then the soft click of the apartment door closing behind her. She was gone. I lay there in the dark, staring at the wall. The silence of the room pressed in on me. But this time it was different. It wasn't the heavy, anxious silence of anticipation. It was the clean, empty silence of an ending. She had given me my walking papers. She had drawn a line in the sand and told me I was on the wrong side of it. And for the first time in a long while, I believed her. I got out of bed. I paced the living room, the city lights twinkling through the window. My mind raced. She was right. I wasn't her father. I was her boyfriend, her partner, and she was treating me like an obstacle. And I had been letting her. For months, my life revolved around her schedule, her moods, her lies. I had stopped seeing my friends, stopped pursuing my own interests. My world had shrunk to the size of this apartment, and most nights I was the only one in it. I picked up my phone. I scrolled through my contacts, deleting all the work clients and family members until I got to my old group chat with my college friends. The chat was called The Degenerates, and it used to be a constant stream of memes, jokes, and weekend plans. My contributions over the last year had been pitifully sparse. Can't make it, guys. Sorry. Have plans. Rain check. I looked at the last few messages from that night. Chris, Mike, and Dan were out somewhere downtown. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. It felt like a monumental decision, like stepping off a cliff. What was I doing? Was I going out to try and catch her? To have some big dramatic confrontation? No, that wasn't it. The thought of seeing her right now made me feel sick. This wasn't about her. It had to be about me. It was about remembering who I was before my life became a waiting room. With a sense of reckless abandon I hadn't felt in years, I typed a message. You guys out tonight? The reply was almost instantaneous from Chris. The ghost speaks. We thought you were legally dead. Yeah, man. We're at the Velvet Room. Get down here. The Velvet Room. One of the biggest, loudest clubs downtown. The kind of place I hadn't been to since I was 25. The kind of place Maya would never think I would go to. A slow smile spread across my face. On my way, I typed. Getting ready felt like a strange ritual of rediscovery. I pushed past Maya's overflowing collection of clothes in the closet and dug out a shirt I hadn't worn in years. It was a little snug but felt good. I looked at myself in the mirror. The sad, tired guy who had been moping around this apartment for months was gone. In his place stood someone who looked alive. There was a nervous energy buzzing under my skin, a feeling that was equal parts terror and exhilaration. I drove downtown. The music in my car turned up loud for the first time in forever. I found a parking spot, the bass from the club audible even from a block away. Walking up to the line, I felt a pang of anxiety. What was I doing? This was insane. But then I remembered the contempt in Maya's eyes. Her words echoed in my mind. You're not my dad. No, I wasn't. I was a 32-year-old man about to enjoy a drink with his friends. It was the most normal thing in the world. I found them at a booth in the back, a half-empty pitcher of beer on the table. The moment they saw me, their faces broke into huge grins. No way, Mike yelled over the music, standing up to give me a hug that almost cracked a rib. He lives. We were about to send out a search party. The reunion was incredible. It was easy. It was familiar. The conversation flowed effortlessly, a mix of old inside jokes and catching up on the last year of our lives. They asked about Maya, and for the first time, I didn't make excuses. It's complicated, I said. I think it might be over. They didn't push. They just nodded, a silent, shared understanding passing between them. They had known all along. For the next hour, I didn't think about Maya once. I was too busy laughing at Chris's terrible jokes, arguing with Dan about sports, and remembering what it felt like to just be a person among his people. I felt like I had resurfaced after being underwater for a very long time. The air was fresh and clean. During a lull in the conversation, as I looked out over the swirling, chaotic mass of the dance floor, I saw her. The club was dark, lit by strobing-colored lights, but I would have recognized her anywhere. She was in the middle of the crowd, laughing, her head thrown back. And she wasn't alone. She was with a group of people I'd never seen before. And she was dancing with a tall, handsome guy, her body pressed close against his. Her hands were on his shoulders, and his were low on her waist. It was intimate. It was undeniable. And it was clear that this was not the first time they had danced like this. This was not a friend's house. A wave of cold, hard certainty washed over me. It wasn't even anger. It was just confirmation. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. My gut hadn't been wrong. My insecurities had been a perfectly functioning alarm system. My first instinct was to turn away, to pretend I hadn't seen her. My second instinct was to walk over and create the ugliest scene imaginable. I did neither. I just watched for a moment, an objective observer witnessing the final act of a play. And then I turned back to my friends. "Another round?" I asked, my voice unexpectedly steady. They looked at me, then followed my gaze out to the dance floor. They saw her. They saw the guy. Their expressions hardened. "You want to get out of here, man?" Chris asked quietly. "No," I replied, shaking my head. "I'm not going to let her ruin my night. I'm here to see you guys. Let's have another beer." And so we did. I made a conscious decision in that moment. I was not going to hide. I was not going to run. I wasn't there to spy on her. I was there to live my own life. And my life at that moment involved having a beer with my best friends. I laughed at their stories. I shared a few of my own. I was present. I was happy. And I think that more than anything else was the real revenge. It took her about 20 minutes to notice me. I saw the exact moment it happened. She was laughing at something the guy had said, and her eyes swept across the room, probably searching for the bar, and then they landed on our booth. On me. Her smile vanished. Her entire body went rigid. The look on her face was a spectacular multi-act play of cascading emotions. First, there was pure shock. It was the look of a ghost seeing a person. I wasn't supposed to be in her world. I was at home, sleeping, being the sad, predictable chump she had left behind. Then came the panic. Her eyes darted from me to the guy she was with back to me. The gears were turning. The lies were catching up with her. She was caught red-handed. Then a flash of righteous indignation. How dare I be here? How dare I invade her space? How dare I be smiling? And finally, as her eyes took in the whole scene, me not alone but surrounded by my friends, laughing, holding a beer, looking completely unbothered, came the horror. This was the one scenario her script had not accounted for. I wasn't the pathetic, controlling dad waiting at home. I was a man with his own life. A life that was visibly proceeding just fine without her. The power dynamic of our entire relationship flipped in that single silent moment. She wasn't the free spirit escaping her boring boyfriend. She was just a liar who had been caught. She immediately detached herself from the guy and started making a beeline for our table, weaving through the crowd with a look of grim determination. My friends tensed up. "Here we go," Mike muttered. She reached our booth, her face a storm cloud. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice a harsh whisper. I took a slow sip of my beer before answering. "I'm out with my friends," I replied calmly. "What are you doing here?" "I thought you were at Sarah's house, comforting her." We decided to come out," she stammered, her eyes nervously flicking towards the dance floor. "Last minute." "That's funny," I said, my voice still quiet, "because Sarah's in Vermont. She posted pictures of the snow this afternoon." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. She had no more lies left. "Look," I said, standing up. I didn't want to have this conversation in front of my friends. I led her a few feet away to a slightly quieter spot near the wall. "What do you want, Maya?" I asked. "What do I want? What do you want? Are you following me?" she hissed. I almost laughed. "You have a very high opinion of your own importance," I said. "No, I'm not following you. I'm doing what you told me to do. I'm stopping. I'm not questioning where you go. I'm living my own life. It just so happens that tonight my life brought me here. The real question is, what were you doing?" "It's not what it looks like," she said, resorting to the oldest cliché in the book. "It looks like you lied to me," I replied. "It looks like you're cheating on me. And it looks like you expected me to be at home waiting for you like a good little boy. But you were wrong. You're an adult, Maya. You can do whatever you want. And it turns out so can I." I glanced over her shoulder at the guy she'd been with, who was now watching us with a puzzled expression. "You should probably get back to your friend," I said. "He looks lonely." I turned and walked back to my booth, leaving her standing there speechless and exposed. I sat down. My friends were all watching me. "You okay?" Dan asked. "I'm great," I said, and I was surprised to find that it was the absolute truth. I felt lighter than I had in years. We stayed for another hour. We talked, we laughed, and I didn't look her way again. Eventually, I saw her and her group leave. She shot one last venomous glance at our table before disappearing out the door. I went home later that night alone. The apartment was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet. It was the silence of a space that was finally truly mine. The next morning, she returned. She tried to apologize. She cried. She said it was a mistake, that she was confused, that the guy meant nothing to her. But the words were empty. They were just the desperate sounds of someone who had been caught, who had lost control of the narrative. I listened patiently until she was finished. "I'm glad you had fun last night," I said gently. "I did too. I saw my friends. I remembered who I am when I'm not waiting for you to come home. And I like that person. I think I'm going to spend more time with him." I had already packed her things. Her bags were waiting by the door. She stared at them and then at me. And finally, she seemed to understand. It was really over. There were no more lies to tell, no more manipulations to perform. She left without another word. I watched her go, and I didn't feel sadness or anger. I just felt quiet. The quiet of a chapter closing. The quiet of a bridge that no longer connected me to a place I didn't want to be. I picked up my phone. There was a new message in the Degenerates group chat. "Same time next week." I smiled. "Definitely." I typed back, and I knew I would be.